Hello and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Alex Gittings, a Solution Architect at IP Fabric, and today I'll be talking about an integration between IP Fabric and Zabbix. Now, people might question of why you would want to integrate IP Fabric with Zabbix, and we find that it's a great complement to each other to be able to get the different information that we get from the different platforms. For example, IP Fabric's great at discovering devices that are in the network, what's configured, and if they're compliant around policies that you've created or we've provided by default into the environment. So whether you have devices going end of life or AAA's configured correctly, but Zabbix monitors devices. It monitors interfaces, throughputs, and many different other metrics, but it can't provide the compliance around what is configured on the network and if it's compliant against a set of rules that are for the business. What we can do with an integration between the two is pull devices that have been discovered by IP Fabric into the Zabbix platform, because we collect the information about SNMP and so forth, and also provide information about the compliance and assurance of those devices into Zabbix, so that you can have tickets, problems, ITSM records for those non-compliant issues. For example, Zabbix might state that a device is up and working properly, but is that device configured correctly? Is it compliant? Are the correct NTP servers configured? Is the correct ACL configured on a device to block specific traffic, etc, etc, etc. There's so many different use cases. So what I'll talk about today is how we have created a Zabbix template to be able to make this integration as easy as possible for our customers, potential customers, and many more. So let's look at IP Fabric. This is the IP Fabric dashboard. We've collected information on 23 devices. Very limited scope for this webinar here. We have a Zabbix host. We have some documentation about the Zabbix template. Now, what is the Zabbix template? A Zabbix template is a predefined integration, a set of items that will be collected when you add a host. So when you add a host to Zabbix, you'll say, hey, I want to assign the IP Fabric template, and it will give you all of the parameters that we will collect from the IP Fabric machine and what to do with them. So there's some requirements first. Firstly, because we've got a monitoring tool, why not monitor the IP Fabric VM itself? And that's simple to do. We can head to settings, we can go to advanced, we can go to SNMP and make sure that we have SNMP enabled, select the version you would like, set a community string, and that's all good to go. Press save. Just make sure you keep note of the community string there. The next thing, the other prerequisite of this integration, is an API token. Now we want to collect information about what IP Fabric has discovered, and that's done via API. So first thing we need to collect is this URL at the top. We'll collect that as well as the version with the /. Just take note of that somewhere. The next thing we need to do is then create an API token. So I'll copy the token. I'm going to save it in a notepad somewhere, create a description and assign a role. I'm going to do admin for now, but you can assign a read-only policy that has the correct permissions for role-based access control. And we want to create that. So this is all that's required on the IP Fabric VM to get all this information into Zabbix. The next part is that we need to import the template into Zabbix, because it doesn't ship by default with the IP Fabric template. It's something we have created. What we could do is head over to GitLab, and I'll post that link in the webinar chat now, and we'll see two files, some documentation in the README file and a YAML file which contains all of the information about how to collect information for Zabbix in that YAML file. So README can contain the documentation, and if we go to ipfabric zabbix template.yaml, we can download that on the right hand side here, save that in a file, and we're good to go. That's all you need to do on this website. You can have a look at the different parameters that we need in a minute as well. So let's go here, Zabbix. It's a blank Zabbix, nothing configured. So let's go to templates. We have all the preset templates, but if we search ipfabric, there's nothing there. So if we now import our template that we just downloaded on the top right hand side, we can select our template, leave the defaults, select import, it will show you what's going to change in the platform, and then we can select import and press OK. That will add the template. That was so easy. It was good, very easy to add that template. Now let's add our host, ipfabric. So we'll go to hosts and monitoring, press create host in top right hand side. Now let's zoom in a little bit. There we go. So we want to create a host called ipfabric. Want to assign a template. That's the template we just imported. Now our template also includes a default Linux SNMP template. So just adding the one template will add the Linux SNMP template as well. We'll assign some host groups. Let's select application because ipfabric is an application, as well as a Linux server because we are a Linux server underneath the hood. Next we need to add an interface. So we'll add SNMP. We'll type in the IP address of the virtual machine, which is there. DNS name we'll leave for now, and then we can put ipfabric in the community that we created earlier. And then that's it for this tab. There is some more information. We need to put that ipfabric API URL somewhere, and we also need the token to live somewhere. That will live in macros. So macros allow us to pass data to different parts of the Zabbix platform. In this instance, our templates, our template items. So if we go back to documentation, we can easily copy the name of the macro and paste it in and add a new one. So that's the ipfabric URL, so that will contain the URL and the token. Paste that one in. So I took note of the token, etc. on the other screen. So I'll paste that in. I'm going to select secret for this token and then paste that one in. And for the URL, I'll paste that one in the top. It can be plain text. Now, when we press add, it will assign all the items that need to be collected. So that's all of the Linux SNMP information, CPU, memory, disk space, etc., as well as device discovery and report information for our intent verification checks. So let's press add. So by default, we'll see that it's not quite got everything yet instantly, but it'll take a little bit of time to come in. And what we'll see is Zabbix will auto update with all the devices it's discovered using ipfabric, which is great. So, and we'll be discovering that using the API. First it'll go and get what the latest snapshot is, then it will go and collect information about all of the devices, the SNMP information that's configured on those devices, and then create them in Zabbix. The next thing we'll see is we can see SNMP is in green for the ipfabric device. So that's meaning we're actively monitoring that ipfabric virtual machine using SNMP. So there we go, the page has just refreshed and we can see all of the devices that ipfabric has and the SNMP credentials to monitor them. The next thing we do is we take the family from ipfabric and make sure that we assign the correct Zabbix template. So for example, if it's a Cisco iOS device, we'll assign the iOS template, and for the Juniper device, we'll assign the Juniper template. If we cannot find one that matches that device, our fallback option is to target ICMP. So we'll monitor that device via ICMP, just the login IP address. So we can start to see these network devices in green now, which are coming in. The next area that we have is just coming now, is that now we're collecting the intent verification rule information from IP Fabric, and what we can do is show that information within the platform. So if we look at problems, we can see that there's some problems that have been created within Zabbix because of the intent verification rules that we have configured. So for example, we can see the fourth one down here is NTP reachable sources is greater than 0. We can see that there's 12. It says there's 12 devices with NTP issues. If we go to IP Fabric, we can go to Technology, Management, NTP, and at the top we can see here, oh, there's 12 devices configured with a compliance issue with NTP. We can select that and we see the different devices that are configured incorrectly, or there's a problem on the network, etc., etc. We can also see different bits and pieces. So there's a warning for SNMP configuration compliance. So if we go to SNMP, we can see 8. If we just double check that, configuration compliance count is 8. If we go to IP Fabric, we've got a count of 8 as well. This is because there's 8 devices with no SNMP communities configured. And we can do that. So device with no SNMP user and no SNMP community configured. This is great because now you can have a problem created within Zabbix for the network team to resolve. And what happens is when the network team have potentially resolved this issue, Zabbix will recheck the next discovery in IP Fabric and auto-resolve the problems it's created before. And this is great because you can rely on this to create incident tickets within an ITSM tool. So when a red intent verification rule fails or goes above 0, create a ticket to resolve those issues. A network engineer will implement the changes. A new snapshot will be created on the next discovery, and then the ticket will auto-resolve to say, hey, we've made sure that it's compliant now, it's fixed. And that can be done. We collect all of we call it intent verification rules. So I've called them red, amber, blue and green. So we can see some green ones. These are just showing that, hey, there's the green compliancy checks. Zabbix doesn't have a green, so I've put it in the information column for that. But all the settings can be customized. For example, if you go to hosts and go to IP Fabric and then select triggers, all of the triggers for all of these intent verification rules are within here, so they can all be customized to your use case as you want. So we can go in here and clone them, update them, etc. And the template can also be updated if you'd like as well. Now what you can do is take this data and put it into a dashboard so you can see an overall view of the health of the estate using IP Fabric. So we can, this is a dashboard I quickly created, but because I deleted my IP Fabric instance, we have to update some metrics. Unfortunately, I can't package these dashboards up with the Zabbix template, but they can be created very easily. So site count, there we go. So you can see there's some, we can add site, the amount of devices we've collected, the site count, we've got memory utilization on the right hand side and CPU utilization, and then a quick overview of how many problems we have for the different intent verification rules that have been created. Now, the blue is the green compliancy rules, intent verification rules. So the blue is good. Warning is kind of our yellow / amber, and high I've put in red. So things like BGP session age at the bottom here, that highlights that there is a number of devices, 10 to be precise, that have a BGP session age of under 24 hours. And we could double check that by going to technology routing BGP, look at session age red, BGP uptime less than 24 hours, and we can see those, and that's because state is active or idle, for example. So hopefully I've given an overview of how IP Fabric and Zabbix can complement one another to bring in information from IP Fabric into Zabbix to auto-populate devices. Let's get some more detail about that. So we can see this device here. If we look at the data that's collected, we can see different bits and etc. as a classic monitoring tool would, but this is all automated. It was pulled into the platform, and when new devices are discovered by IP Fabric, they will also be updated within Zabbix. So we can see all of the data about all the interfaces, VLANs, etc. And there's many different metrics that are pulled via that. So hopefully it gives you some overview, and hopefully will allow you to use this template. It's free to use, and yeah, let us know about if any you want to add some functionality, and this is the start, so we're continually improving the integration. Thank you for joining the webinar.